Hey, remember that time you were looking at a mountain bike, then a commuter bike, and finally that crazy off-road electric thing that promised dirt bike vibes without the noise? I get it, spending a few $100 on a bike that doesn't live up to its hype feels like a bad joke. Before you drop cash on a ride that might sit in the garage forever, let's walk through what the Tuttio ICT 60V 25Ah actually brings to the table, where it shines, and where it could leave you regretting that purchase. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest question people ask is, can this thing really handle both my daily commute and a weekend trail run? The Tuttio ICT packs a 60-volt, 4,000-watt peak motor that outputs 170 Nm of torque. In plain English, you get a strong push from a standstill that feels like a small motorcycle, especially when you're on the lower gear eco mode for city riding or the power mode for tackling steep, loose terrain. The real-world impact shows up when you're stuck at a traffic light. The bike can zip off without you having to pedal hard, which is a huge time saver if you're commuting in a city with hills. On a trail, that same torque lets you power through sand, mud, or a rocky climb without constantly shifting gears. Now, let's talk range. The bike uses a 60V 25Ah lithium pack, which the manufacturer claims will give you a long range. In practice, that translates to roughly 5,060 miles on a single charge. If you stay in eco mode and keep your speed under 15 miles per hour, switch to a higher power mode, and you'll see that number shrink to the mid-30s. If you're planning a full-day off-road adventure with multiple climbs, you'll probably need to bring a charger or a spare battery. For daily commuters who ride 1,015 miles each way, the stock battery is more than enough, especially if you can plug in at work. One of the less obvious trade-offs is the bike's weight. At just over 70 pounds, the ICT is heavier than a typical commuter bike, mostly because of the big motor and the fat tire suspension setup. That weight makes it a solid, stable platform on gravel or loose dirt, but it also means you'll need a bit more effort to lift it onto a bike rack or carry it upstairs. If you live in a high-rise building with limited storage, you might find the heft a nuisance. On the flip side, the weight distributes well, providing a planted feel when you're cornering hard on a rough trail. The professional suspension system, an inverted fork-up front, and a rear shock does a decent job of soaking up bumps. I tested it on a mixed surface park, pavement, crushed stone, and a few shallow gorges. The front fork stayed firm enough for precise steering, while the rear shock kept the seat from bouncing like a carnival ride. This setup is practical for riders who want to take the bike on a mix of terrain without swapping components. It's not a full suspension mountain bike, but for the price, it offers a surprisingly comfortable ride on uneven ground. Speaking of price, the value proposition of the Tuttio ICT is anchored in its dual-purpose positioning. Most electric bikes sit squarely in either the commuter niche or the trail niche. The ICT tries to be both, which means it offers a decent amount of torque and range for city use, and the added durability for off-road fun. If you're the type of rider who wants a single bike that can replace a commuter bike in the week and a dirt bike on the weekend, this could be a cost-effective solution compared to buying two separate machines. However, if you're a hardcore mountain biker who expects a bike to handle technical descents, you'll quickly miss the high-end suspension geometry and the lighter frames found on purpose-built mountain Ebikes. Now, let's outline who should definitely consider this bike. First, urban commuters who also enjoy weekend trail sessions and don't want to maintain two bikes. Second, people who need a reliable, high-torque system for hauling groceries or a small trailer. Those 170 Nm of torque can pull a light cargo pod up a modest hill without breaking a sweat. Third, riders who live in suburban areas with a mix of paved roads and unpaved paths and want a bike that won't get stuck in mud or sand. If any of those describe you, the ICT could be a sweet spot. On the other side, there are buyers who should probably look elsewhere. If you're primarily a city rider who wants a sleek, lightweight Ebike that folds for easy storage, the ICT size and weight might be a deal-breaker. If you're a pure trail enthusiast who expects full suspension, adjustable geometry, and a battery that can survive a day's worth of aggressive riding without a recharge, you'll find the ICT suspension and range too modest. And if you're on a tight budget where every dollar counts, the ICT sits in a higher price tier, and you might get a better value by choosing a lower-powered commuter Ebike.